Welcome back to Josh and Kristie Stealing the Internet. I'm Kristie.
And I'm Josh. Happy Star Wars Day.
May the 4th be with you. And in honor of Star Wars Day, I've gathered 6 pieces of Reddit drama fit for a galaxy far, far away.
Let's jump into the first one.
Am I the asshole for opening and using a 2008 Lego Star Wars set I got for my birthday that cost my friend a couple $100?
Did your friend not expect you to play with your new toy? Or are they the type to just want you to put it on a shelf somewhere because it's kind of old? It's honestly not that old by Star Wars standards.
I had my birthday about a month ago, and I was flabbergasted seeing the Lego Star Wars 2008 Republic gunship, fully boxed. My friend didn't even mention an exact amount, just that he spent a lot to get one since I've always been a Star Wars fan, and when he saw someone selling that, he knew it was worth it, especially since while he's not rich, he's a little better off than I am monetarily. I really didn't care about actually getting anything, or at least not something that expensive, since I've never gotten a gift that expensive before. But I really thanked him and hugged him, which I usually don't, out of awkwardness, but I really appreciated it. Anyways, a couple days ago when he visited, he saw it was now sitting on my shelf with all the minifigures by it, and he seemed kind of shocked, almost disappointed. He said stuff like that loses its value if it's unboxed, and you're not supposed to open rare things, etc. But I find the value in actually using things.
Yeah, I gotta say, if you're just buying something as an investment, you should probably stick it in your own closet instead of giving it to somebody else and assuming that they will also just hoard it unopened. It sounds like OP might not have a precedent of leaving things in the box on the shelf.
I know that thing is over 15 years old now, but I've never understood that mentality if I could just look at boxes in stores or on the computer. They aren't worth anything to me if I can't actually use it, so I open and use everything I get, no matter the price. I guess I just don't have that collector mentality or whatever, but who is the asshole here? I know I got it as a gift for my birthday, but he also spent a lot apparently, and judging by his reaction, I felt bad. Am I the asshole?
I don't think you're the asshole here. Your friend needs to understand that when you buy somebody a gift, you are buying it for them, and they're allowed to use their gift how they want. If your friend thought about the person that they were buying the gift for and knew that you were going to open it no matter what, they probably could have saved some money by buying an opened one on eBay.
That's what I was thinking. I feel like no assholes here. It's just expectations were not communicated clearly from the friend, because he bought this for you as an investment for something for you to display and maybe later sell for a lot of money. And you opened it and used it because he didn't tell you that. If he had known you were going to open it and used it, he could have got you a cheaper version that wasn't new in the box.
That's fair, and it sounds like friend's whole reaction to it was just looking disappointed.
Yeah, and I feel like that's a fair reaction. If I bought something worth a lot of money, like as an investment plan kind of for my friend, and then they opened it and like ruined its value, it's worthless now. I'd be a little bit upset that I spent that much money on it.
Yeah, because it does have that same energy as you're playing with the toy wrong. But in this case, playing with the toy wrong is playing with the toy at all.
Yeah, and I get that it's a gift. You can do whatever you want with the gift. But I do also get the friend's disappointment that you are not using it in the way that they intended you to use the gift. And they weren't mean about it. They just couldn't hide their little bit of disappointment. So I feel like no assholes here.
I gotta agree. No assholes here. Just a lack of communication and misunderstanding between friends. Sounds like decent friends, too, because they did spend a lot of money on your birthday.
Top comment, NTA. I'm a Lego fan, and there's absolutely 2 sides to this hobby. Collectors and builders. But something bought as a gift, be it by a builder or a collector, is then the recipients to do with as they please.
Yeah, that's fair. And if your friend that bought it for you was on the builder side instead of the collector side, they probably would have been very disappointed if you just shoved it up on a shelf in the box. So, kind of a coin flip there.
Another comment. OP, I would let him know that the reason you opened it is that it means a lot to you, and you would never think of selling it because of what it represents as a thoughtful gift from a good friend. Or something along those lines. So it never occurred to you to keep it boxed.
I mean, that's also true. If somebody bought me a present and then I turned around and sold it for a profit, I would fully be expecting them to be insulted that I sold the gift that they gave me. That's generally not why you give a gift.
No assholes. It was a gift to you and you have full right to do what you want with it. Your friend being disappointed doesn't make them an asshole since they didn't fly off the handle or anything like that. They probably just didn't realize you would value things more being used instead of just sitting there and growing in value. Don't feel too bad. They just have to process their feelings. That's all.
Yeah, that's fair because, from a financial point of view, it does sound like keeping it in the box is the better choice. But from an enjoyment point of view, opening it is generally better. It's sort of like buying Pokemon cards for the nieces and nephews for their birthdays back when they played Pokemon cards. Like, yeah, they would have been worth a lot more if they never opened any of those packages, but they wouldn't have had any fun.
Yeah, that's kind of how all collectibles go, which is why they're more expensive in the box because everybody wants to open the box and play with their toy.
Yeah, it's not fun to run around the room with a box pretending that it's flying.
Pew, 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 pew!
You're so cool. Sorry. I was not expecting that in the slightest. I like it. I'm keeping it in, even if you second guess yourself.
Am I the asshole for calling my sister an idiot when she said she wants to name her baby Anakin Skywalker?
Sorry, is your last name Skywalker? Because naming your kid the first and last name of a fictional character is wild.
First name Anakin, middle name Skywalker. Wish I were kidding.
Not even Sky. Sky is an acceptable middle name. Or Walker.
Well, I guess they could have two middle names, Sky and Walker, as middle names.
Right.
If you're so upset about them using the last name as a middle name, which I think is actually kind of common.
I've never heard of this before.
Oh, some people give their kid their maiden name as the middle name, if it's not too weird.
Like Skywalker?
Yeah. But anyway, so it'd be Anakin Skywalker Jones, or whatever their last name is.
I mean, everybody is going to know what your parents are into. And Anakin never did anything bad. Why not name a kid after him?
First name Anakin, middle name Skywalker. I wish I were kidding. My sister is 19, 4 years younger than me, and she became pregnant unexpectedly with her boyfriend of only 3 months. She's way too young for a kid, and that shows in a multitude of ways, but none so egregious as her name announcement. She posted on Facebook yesterday a calligraphy banner with Anakin Skywalker last name printed on it. I put a laugh react because obviously I thought it was a joke, but then later when I called her to ask for the real name, she said, no, that's exactly what we've decided to call him. I asked how the baby daddy felt about it, and she said, well, I'm carrying the baby for 9 months and pushing it out of my body, so I get name privileges. WTF.
For starters, it's always so embarrassing when you type the laugh emoji and know they were dead serious.
Yeah, that's kind of like a foot in your mouth instance right there.
Yeah, but also naming your kid Anakin Skywalker might also be a foot in your mouth situation right there. I don't know. I know it sounds fun up until the point when the kid develops free will and realizes that you named them after Anakin Skywalker.
I said, dude, you know this kid is going to be abysmally bullied, right? You're giving him a name that is fully entrenched in pop culture. It's not a name that he can fit to his own identity. He's going to be known as Darth Vader his whole fucking life. I then said I didn't even know my sister was a Star Wars fan.
Sorry, is she not a Star Wars fan on top of that? Or is she just a closet Star Wars fan?
She responded, it's not about Star Wars at all. I just really love the name Anakin Skywalker. It has good sonics. Question mark, question mark, question mark? Because what the heck does that mean?
I don't know. I mean, I guess it does have good sonics, but isn't that just because it's so ingrained in everyone's mind by hearing it so many times?
I kind of think, yeah. If Anakin Skywalker was not famous, you'd hear that name and be like, that's kind of a weird name. Skywalker's kind of cool, but Anakin? That's an unusual name.
Skywalker's a pretty uncommon middle name, Kristie.
Oh, yeah, I was thinking last name. How awesome would it be to have the last name Skywalker, though, before it became a famous Star Wars reference?
It'd probably be awful. It's like all the people named Harry Potter.
Oh, well, I mean, if Star Wars never became a thing, not before. Yeah, no, I just meant if Star Wars was never a thing, Skywalker would be pretty cool last name. I feel like you need to become a pilot.
Yeah, I'll give you that. It's a pretty cool last name. I mean, that's why they gave it to, the hero of the movie, right? Luke, not Anakin.
My sister continued, I'm sure people won't care if he's called Anakin. I started laughing and told her she's an idiot for not seeing the problem here, and she got really, really mad. She hung up on me and evidently called my parents because they FaceTimed me later, and while Dad thought it was an absolute riot, Mom told me off for not being gentle with my sister during a difficult time.
Sounds like Mom also hates the name because she didn't tell you off for not supporting your sister's decision. She told you off for not being gentle when you told her it was a dumb idea.
Yet nobody thinks this is a good idea.
It probably isn't. Also, is she gonna call him Anakin? I feel like you could at least shorten it to Annie.
No, because that's a girl's name he's going to get made fun of.
What is the masculine of it? Anakin? Just a full Anakin?
Yeah, I don't think they're, like, the only masculine and name I can think of is Andrew.
Yeah, it doesn't shorten easy, does it?
I mean, in the movie, Padme calls him Annie, but that's when he's a little kid.
Right, that's why I was thinking that, but you're right, in, like, not Star Wars world, that is a girl's name.
I just can't believe my nephew is going to be fully named after the most iconic villain in history. LOL, what the hell? It's almost funny if you don't think about how much it would genuinely suck to be named Darth Vader. Am I the asshole?
Okay, well, be fair, OP. He's not going to be named Darth Vader. He's going to be named Anakin Skywalker.
But you know that all the other little kids in his classroom in kindergarten, as soon as they're introduced to Star Wars and make the connection, they're going to start calling him Darth Vader.
Yeah, they definitely are. Like, that's just such an obvious nickname. I feel like when you pick a baby name, it's a good idea to avoid the ones that have obvious nicknames, right?
Yes, that's why I do not always think it's a good idea to hide the baby name until the baby's born, because you got to run it by all your family and see if any of them can come up with a horrible nickname that you didn't think of and save your child from that future trauma.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat there. You like pick out the initial one, and then it's always good to have it run by the group to make sure nobody notices anything, blaring. Like the fact that all of the kids in school are going to name him Darth Vader, which essentially translates to father. And to OP, I will say, just be glad she wasn't a Jar Jar fan. That also has good Sonics.
But apparently she's not even an Anakin Skywalker fan.
I'm just saying, I like the Sonics of a Jar Jar Binks.
Top comment, NTA. Seriously, it's such a wildly strange name choice, I think you're entirely forgiven for being shocked. I know people have the right to name their kids, but I think family members ought to be able to say, hang on, when it's so blatantly unsuitable and borderline dangerous for the kid's future. Anakin Skywalker will be an icon for decades yet, and they'll get so much shit.
Yeah, I don't think family gets like a hard veto on what you name your own kid, but they absolutely have the right to, talk at you for a long time to try to get you to see the light. It's just, if little Anakin puts that name on a driver's license application, do you think it's going to get auto-rejected? Because that's what happened to all the Harry Potters over in England.
Yeah, that would suck.
Like, one of them got his bus pass revoked because they thought it was fake.
But I do feel like Harry Potter must be a much more common name before it got famous than Anakin Skywalker is.
Yeah, which is why I feel like everyone's going to look at Anakin Skywalker and be like, well, that's not even close to a real name.
Although I do feel like a lot of millennials have been naming their kids after their fandoms, so maybe it's becoming more normal?
I mean, it's possible. There's going to be a lot of Khaleesi's driving soon.
I also know someone who named a kid Khaleesi, but they spelled it different at least.
Well, they got that going for them, and at least enough people did that one that they can all kind of commiserate with each other.
NTA, maybe Anakin by itself, maybe could have been fine, but why the whole name? I've met a little girl named Leia, and that was cute, but I don't know, people be wild out here.
Leia was a real name before Star Wars. Was Anakin a real name before Star Wars?
I don't think so. I had never heard of it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I'm younger than Star Wars, but I'm unaware of any Anakins outside of that one character.
Unless it's like a name that is common in a foreign country, it was not common in America.
Yeah, so I don't know if I'd put it in the same category as Leia, but I get where they're coming from.
Someone else has the same point as you. Leia is a name that exists outside of Star Wars, though. People have been named Leia or Leia long before Star Wars existed. Can't say the same about Anakin as far as I know. And then someone replied, the closest I know of is the Anakim, who were a race of giants in the Bible.
Well, that's also a weird thing to name your kid after.
But then they continue, Lucas got the name from director Ken Anakin. I guess it's spelled that way in the early drafts with two N's.
Oh.
So I guess you could say it's a last name. That said, don't name your son Anakin Skywalker.
It's just she said she's not a Star Wars fan. But has she at least watched the movies?
Oh goodness, I hope so.
Right? Because, he was slaughtering younglings.
There's another comment about that kind of. Yeah, I knew a kid named Anakin, and honestly, it fit him pretty well, but the whole thing is really pushing it, NTA. And someone replied, the name fit him pretty well? Wait, hold up, was he slaughtering younglings?
He also never had the high ground.
Oh, you want to go the jokes route? Reddit's got you. Once again, Anakin wouldn't have the high ground. He'd never win an argument, wouldn't have a leg to stand on. And when he's wrong, he'll never save face.
It's just...
His mom's too oblivious to lend a hand.
He just does not have a good character arc.
Yeah, if you want to name your kid after a famous character, at least pick a hero. And please, for the love of God, pick a series that is finished.
In theory, Anakin's story is finished, but they keep writing prequels, don't they? Because, we know everything from his birth to his death.
Well, I was just thinking Khaleesi, and then in the last season of Game of Thrones, she went off the rails, and everybody was suddenly regretting the name Khaleesi for their pets and children.
Right, so at least Sister probably won't be blindsided by anything. We know all of Anakin's sins.
But does the sister? Has she watched the movies?
I sure hope so.
Hey, if you're enjoying this episode so far, do us a favor and hit that subscribe button.
Yeah, it really helps us out, and it lets us know we should keep making fun content like this for you.
Would I be the asshole if I reported a professor to her department head after I graduated?
Probably not if they deserve to be reported. I'm just more curious what this has to do with Star Wars.
I'm a year and a half out of uni. Last year, I had to take an ethics class to graduate. No big deal, but that professor seemed to not like me from the beginning. Though I'm not sure why. She would be passive-aggressive towards me. She graded unfairly, and group projects where everyone should get the same grade, she'd give students she didn't like lower grades. One week, I was missing class for a required trip for another class, so I gave her an official university excuse note a week early and my homework the class before. She refused the note because it didn't come from a business dean. My major was business, my minor was music. It was an excuse from the music dean. Even though she couldn't, and gave me 0 on the assignment because the only reason a student would skip class is because they didn't do their homework.
Sounds like maybe you should have reported her a little earlier than after you were already graduated.
Despite the fact that I turned my homework in early, so I clearly did it. I reported the grade-related things to my advisor since students aren't supposed to go to the department head over grade disputes. Skip to the end of the year and our final is on the 4th of May, aka Star Wars Day. I finish early, but we're not allowed to leave early. She told us if we finished early, draw or write on the back of the exam. So I take all the ethical viewpoints we'd covered and apply them to Star Wars characters because I was bored and I studied, so I was going to use that info. I get an email after grades are released from the professor saying she enjoyed my analysis of characters and asked if she could use it in future classes. I emailed back and said she could as long as she credited me, or at least as a student in 2018. I hear nothing back. Fast forward to a week ago, I get an email from my friend who is in the class this semester, and attached is a scanning of the back of my exam. My friend wrote, "Isn't this your handwriting?" I responded back confirming it was mine. I get a screenshot of my friend's class portal, and the text referring to my stuff was, "The following is my analysis of Star Wars characters based on the original and prequel trilogies. To what extent do you agree or disagree with each assignment?" My friend also said that the professor referred to it as hers in class.
She couldn't even be bothered to rewrite it?
That's what I was thinking. She just scanned it and put it up, and the friend was like, "Is this your handwriting?"
Yeah.
She needs to rewrite it in her own handwriting or type it out.
She needs to type it out because why are you making students try to decipher handwriting during a lecture? Things should just be typed by default when it's up on a screen. But also, if you're stealing shit, at least sweep the evidence under the rug a little.
I emailed the professor and said I agreed to let her use the material in the future, but with credit. I didn't appreciate her claiming it as her own work and asked her to please just say a former student or anything of the like. She still hasn't responded. As a former student, any complaints would now be directed to her department head. I think it's pretty unethical to be using a student's work and claiming it as her own. all while teaching a class on ethics.
Ooh, you know what? I was not factoring in the fact that this is an ethics class. That changes things, doesn't it? I mean, it sucks either way, but, like, it's more egregious when it's an ethics professor.
Yeah, like, they're supposed to be held to a higher standard because they're teaching this stuff.
Yeah, and considering how far up your asshole a university will crawl if you get accused of copyright infringement, you might as well give her that experience too.
I don't know if this is worth it, since I probably wouldn't even know if I didn't have a friend in the class now. Would I be the asshole if I reported her?
I don't think you'd be the asshole. I think it's at least worth sending the department head an email and then forgetting about it. Like, maybe it's not worth your time to, like, you know, throw a fit and try to chase people down over this. But she is an ethics professor, and she was just blatantly mean to you in the course.
Which is also not very ethical.
Right. So, kind of sounds like she sucks. So you might as well send the department head a quick email and be like, here's my complaints about this professor. Just so that she doesn't do it to other students in the future.
Top comment, NTA, please do it. She is drunk with power and not everyone will be in a position to push back. As a former student who clearly did well despite her BS, you have the ammo to take her out. Or at least move the process forward when other students complain.
Yeah, because if there's no other reports on her record when another student goes and files a legitimate complaint, it's a lot harder for that student to make anything happen, and it could actually hurt their ability to graduate.
Yeah, so I feel like OP is in a good position to complain because they've already graduated. They got nothing to lose.
It's just good ethics, honestly.
NTA, that's plagiarism and an outright violation of professional ethics.
Oh yeah, it's plagiarism, not copyright infringement that they crawl up your butt for. Either way, though, it's immoral. Unethical.
NTA, report her. Follow up to see what the department head does, because plagiarism by a professor is a university issue. You're probably not the first she's ripped off either. But then someone replied, NTA, but professors get complained about to their deans all the time. Sometimes it's warranted, sometimes it's not. It almost never results in anything bad happening to the teacher. Go ahead and complain. Her department head or dean will probably just tell the teacher to knock it off, and that'll be that.
There's a good chance that that'll happen, which is why I said don't, like, invest emotionally in it. Just send off the email, and even if you don't hear back, I might just move on with my life. Sometimes people suck, and it sounds like this woman just sucks.
So Reddit overall says NTA, and maybe that ethics professor should have listened to her own lectures.
Is it like that thing in art where you need to learn the rules before you can break the rules?
I don't think that applies outside of an arts degree. Definitely not when it comes to ethics.
No, but I would love to see an ethics professor try to argue that it is.
Am I the asshole for trying to get my girls interested in my hobbies and interests instead of getting into theirs?
I mean, I feel like a normal compromise would be to get into each other's hobbies and interests at the same time. But proceed.
I have 2 girls, 13 and 10, with my wife of 9 years. My girls are typical girls and don't have a lot of interests in common with me. I tried from a young age to get them interested in things we could share. They just never got interested. I'm talking things like video games, science fiction and fantasy books, Star Wars, Iron Man, Batman, etc. These are all popular things that I see a lot of other parents getting into with their kids. They're more interested in things I just can't relate to. The 13-year-old is into fashion, clothes, makeup, hair, all of that. The younger one really likes animals and Jojo Bao. I don't know who that is.
I know of Jojo Siwa. Is that somehow the same thing? Or is there a Jojo Bo?
I have no idea.
I mean, either way, I feel like it's not abnormal for a dad to have trouble relating to his, what are they, teenage daughters?
10 and 13.
Yeah, teenage and preteen daughters. It's one of those situations where I think in hindsight, they appreciate that you always made an effort, but you're cringy and embarrassing for the next 8 years of their lives.
I've tried to be interested in their things. We watched this really bad campy TV show called One Day at a Time, but I didn't like it and found the writing bad, and they got mad at me when I would laugh. The older one likes the show Riverdale, which I admit was a little more interesting, but it was all a bunch of gossipy teen stuff. I just hit a wall. I couldn't figure out why I was going through all this effort to spend time with them when they obviously don't care enough to be interested in things I care about either. I tried to sit down with them and watch The Mandalorian, and they didn't like it.
They're 10 and 13. I think that you're hanging out with them so that you get to spend time with your daughters, not because you share the interests. At least that's the direction that I would assume you should be approaching this from.
It really hurt me that they didn't like The Mandalorian. Like, really, really hurt me. I know kids aren't going to be your own reflection staring back at you, but I thought I'd at least be able to share the things I love with them. I thought we'd get to spend time together instead of being one of those fractured families with no interest in each other. I told my wife that I was sick of feeling like an outsider in my own family, and that I'd like it if we could maybe do some designated time that we would do things I liked too. I suggested we could all sit down and learn to play this board game I like, Settlers of Catan. My wife told me that I need to stop trying to force my stuff down their throat and find a balance somehow. I told her that this is the balance. I can't pretend to be interested in things like gossipy TV dramas, soap operas, etc., when that just isn't me. I'm not a teenage girl. I can't pretend to be one. Am I the asshole? I feel lonely in my own family.
I understand where OP's coming from. But yeah, I think he's being kind of the asshole here. Like, they're 10 and 13. They probably aren't going to share all of your interests. And at that age, I don't think they're going to want to hang out just for the sake of hanging out with dad. There is always the family game night, and mom has to take the girls aside and be like, well, this is important to dad, so just tough it out for the night. But I don't know how that goes in the long term. Are you going to sour them against Settlers of Catan for life?
Probably. I feel like 10 might be a little young for that game. Like, I would have found it boring.
10 feels like it's right on the border of finding that game fun or not, right? And I feel like a lot of it is you see other people playing it and you want to play too. I don't know, though. I get that it's tough to relate to your teenage girls. All I can say is that you gotta suck it up for another 8 years, OP.
What really gets me is that he's like, I can't pretend to be interested in their things. I'm not a teenage girl. Well, they can't pretend to be interested in your things. They're not a middle-aged man. What the heck? You're like being all hypocritical here.
A little bit. And like, I don't know most of the stuff he listed, but Riverdale, at least I know. And that one gets a little dark, doesn't it?
I only watched the first season of that TV show, but yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, I'm like, is that a 13-year-old old enough to watch that? I guess it depends on how mature that 13-year-old is.
I feel like the 10-year-old probably isn't, but 13-year-old maybe.
But I think the point I was working towards was that OP could probably get some enjoyment out of that show if he gave it more of a chance.
Also, he's laughing at the things that they like. The show is so terrible. He's scoffing at things that they're enjoying. I don't think he's building a good relationship with his daughters.
Yeah, you're the adult in this relationship. It's up to you to reach out your hand and take an interest in what's important to them. I can name every single My Little Pony because our niece talked at me about My Little Pony for like 3 hours.
Every time you saw her.
Yeah, and you know, when they're that age, you just try to take an interest in what they're interested in. We watched a few episodes. It's not a terrible show. I mean, that one has like the whole brony community. Maybe a weird example. But even if it's not my cup of tea, I enjoyed spending time with my niece.
Top comment, you're the asshole. Part of being a parent is taking an interest in what your kids are into, whether you like it or not. And trying to force your kids to get into whatever you're interested in pretty much never works.
Yeah, it's just doomed to fail, isn't it?
Oh my, especially at that age, they're like, oh, dad likes that. That's so not cool.
It's sort of like how Darth Vader really wanted to hang out with Luke and is like, hey, join the dark side. And Luke's like, I'm just not into the dark side, Dad. Like, it didn't work out for Darth Vader. It's not going to work out for you. Just stop before it escalates to the point that someone's hand gets cut off.
I'm moving on to another comment.
I could keep going.
What do you bet the mom has done most of the parenting and he thought she just really liked Peppa Pig? You're the asshole, OP. Learn to enjoy spending time with your own kids.
No, she loves that girly crap.
I was like, yeah, it's even worse when they're young and they're watching really, really annoying shows and you just got to pretend you like it.
Yeah, because up to a certain point, it's about nudging them in a more acceptable direction, in your opinion, right? It's not about outright saying, hey, let's watch The Mandalorian. It's like, find that halfway show. Instead of the kids watching like Coco Melon or something on YouTube, we would get them to watch Mickey Mouse cartoons on YouTube.
Something I could tolerate.
Yes, something that didn't hurt me to have on in the same room.
Someone replied to that last comment. What? You mean moms don't read The Very Hungry Caterpillar a million times because it's their favorite piece of English literature?
I mean, let's be fair, that's a good one.
You're the asshole. They're literal kids. It's not their job to placate you and to build a relationship. These are the years that you connect and show interest in them, not complain that their perfectly normal and appropriate young girl interests aren't exciting enough for you. Why should they be interested in you when you're not interested in them?
Also, does Dad just not know the concept of playing hard to get? Like, if you want him to play Catan, you don't say, like, hey, let's have a mandatory family Catan night. No, you play Catan with your wife and you make it look super fun and then be like, no, you won't like this. Don't join in. You gotta play it up a little.
Yeah, I don't know if this game is up your alley. I just don't know if you like it. This is a more adult game.
Yeah, they're gonna whomp you at Catan if you're that bad at bluffing, OP.
I don't have any iron. No. Try and steal it from someone else. I have none. No iron here.
Nope, all sheep.
So it hurt when they didn't like Mando, but it's fine when you didn't like One Day at a Time? You haven't tried to be interested in their things. You've grudgingly watched something and then declared it sucked. And you can't figure out why you would put in all this effort? I'll help. Because they're your kids. This stuff is reciprocal. Show genuine interest in them because you're interested in them, not because you're putting in interest coins to get a Settlers of Catan prize out. To be honest, I'm into the same stuff you are and get your boredom with the other stuff, but you don't get to choose your kids. You only get to choose what kind of relationship you want to have with them. Right now, you're the asshole, but you can definitely turn this around. Grab a bow and learn a JoJo song. Okay, so I guess it is JoJo Siwa. She always wears a bow in her hair, so something like that.
Or maybe OP just doesn't know her last name.
I don't know. OP replied, there's a huge difference between the kind of show Mando is than that One Day at a Time show. Like, they aren't even on the same plane.
I've never even heard of the One Day at a Time show, but yeah, it does sound like OP is being a little condescending about his children's interests. It's just like, Qui-Gon Jinn was not into pod racing before he got to Tatooine, but Anakin was into pod racing, and he wanted to be supportive of a kid that would eventually look up to him like a somewhat father figure. Be like Qui-Gon Jinn. You keep giving me these looks. This is the Star Wars episode. Did you not expect me to shoehorn them in? You should be happy I didn't do this earlier.
OP has another comment. I just think that pretending to be someone you're not is pretty weird. And someone replied, so you want them to pretend to be someone they're not?
Yeah, OP, I wasn't calling you a huge asshole from your post, but you're sliding further down the ladder with these comments.
The more he replies to comments, the bigger an asshole he is. He is not taking anyone's advice to heart.
There's some merit in the people who post the Am I the Asshole question and then never reply to any comments, apparently. Like, Palpatine did not just go out and take over the Senate by force and by demanding what he wants. No, he did it subtly and behind the scenes, and you gotta be a little more like Palpatine, OP. Good father figure right there.
Not something I was expecting you to say. Be like Emperor Palpatine.
He's very charismatic. I'm really stretching on these, Kristie, aren't I?
I'm sorry this story wasn't Star Wars enough for you. It is really hard to find Star Wars stories on Reddit, okay?
Like when Luke was stuck on Dagobah, did Yoda berate Luke when he wasn't taking his Force training seriously? No.
He kind of did.
Oh, not that badly. He, set a goal. He's like, you want that X-Wing out of the water? Then get the X-Wing out of the water.
I remember some whacking with a stick going on.
Okay, yeah, maybe Yoda was a little old school. He must have just aged horribly in that swamp, right? Because he was a pretty good father figure to the younglings when he was on Coruscant. I think he was. He was always teaching all the younglings. You just, you're not You're not cutting me off, and I'm just gonna keep digging myself further, Kristie. You gotta move on to the next story or something.
But anyways, Reddit thinks OP is definitely the asshole. He's the parent, and it's on him to like build this relationship with his daughters, and he's got to do that by showing an interest in their interests.
Maybe the problem is OP just really likes The Mandalorian, and in that show, Grogu does take an interest in all of Mando's interests. But there is a couple episodes, spoilers, where Grogu has to think about learning the Force instead of learning to follow Mando around. And Mando supports Grogu's interests.
Yeah, this guy should learn from Mando. Support your kids' interests even if they don't align with yours and it makes you sad.
Sometimes you just gotta eat that frog right along with your kid.
Would I be the asshole for having a Star Wars themed wedding?
Personally, I think that sounds awesome.
But only if both of you are into Star Wars.
Oh, it never occurred to me that maybe your fiancé was not into Star Wars.
My fiancé, 26 female, and I, 27 male, recently got engaged on Valentine's Day. We're hoping to get married in the next 2 years, so almost every conversation we have at the moment is about wedding planning. Star Wars has been a huge influence on my life, ever since I was a kid. I watched all the movies more times than I could possibly count, and it's something nearly all my family and friends enjoy too. So when I was thinking of wedding planning ideas, it seemed obvious that we should do something Star Wars related.
I mean, the groom should get a little something for himself on the day.
I've been brainstorming ideas and I have some really great themed ideas. For example, alcoholic blue milk drinks to serve guests, hiring stormtroopers to party and dance, Jedi robes for all of my groomsmen, and playing Across the Stars for the first dance.
Okay. When I said that the groom should get something for himself on the day, I think I meant more like a groom's cake. Or some nerdy cake toppers like we had.
Yeah, we got an AT-AT with a little top hat and one with a little veil, and they sat on our cake.
But it's kind of sounding like your fiance is not as into Star Wars as you are, OP, and I feel like you need to default to the normal option for most things, and you just get a few little call-outs to your interest.
While I have more typically nerdy interests, my fiance isn't really interested in most movies or games. She's very much a typical girly girl, and the type of person who has been planning her wedding since she was very young. She has some very specific ideas about what our wedding should look like, much more formal and glamorous than I'd imagined, and her vision definitely doesn't include lightsabers.
Sounds like you both have some very specific ideas.
The problem is that my fiance really doesn't want anything Star Wars related at our wedding at all. All of my suggestions so far have been shot down without further discussion. One solution I suggested was that we could each plan half the wedding. Like she handles the ceremony and I plan the reception.
That's never gonna fly, man.
That way we could both have what we want.
That's not what she wants. She wants the full day.
However, my fiance says that plan would make me the asshole because even having a Star Wars themed reception would be an embarrassment in front of everyone we know. From my perspective, this is my wedding too, and I should get to decide at least half of the day. While money isn't much of an issue, we share finances, so I'm paying enough to get a say too. Am I the asshole for wanting a Star Wars themed wedding even though my fiance really doesn't?
You should get a say too, but not to the extent that you get to go with a crazy theme. A Star Wars theme has to be 2 yeses. Otherwise, you get a normal wedding.
Right? Like, this is supposed to be a day celebrating your love together.
Not your passion about Star Wars.
That only one of you has. Like, our wedding, yeah, we had a few little nerdy details here and there, like our cake toppers. I think you had Millennium Falcon cufflinks.
They were the Highland Shield from Zelda.
Oh, okay. So there was little nerdy details here and there, but like our wedding as a whole did not have an overwhelmingly nerdy theme.
No,
it was a normal wedding.
No, you stick in the little details, and that's your fun thing to look at in the photos, right? We both wore Converse as sort of like a call out to Doctor Who.
Yeah, and the vases on all the centerpieces was Erlenmeyer flasks because I'm a big science nerd.
Yeah, and I didn't know what an Erlenmeyer flask was before we started dating, so that one was all you.
But I mean, I did check with you first and see if you were okay with it.
Yeah, and I mean, that was cool. I liked it. It's just that's how a wedding goes. You gotta meet in the middle on every detail, and the middle is usually pretty normal, I'm afraid.
Top comment, you're the asshole. Jedi robes? Paid stormtroopers? It sounds so over the top that your wedding would be more of a spectacle than a celebration of your love and life together. Is this really the hill you want to die on? Is your identity that wrapped up in a franchise that you want it to monopolize a day meant to be shared about your love?
Yeah, because a lot of OP's ideas would just overshadow everything else about the wedding, right?
If there were stormtroopers at a wedding dancing on the dance floor and they were like paid to be there, that is the only thing I would talk about at that wedding ever again.
Right. OP is forgetting that a lot of the wedding should be designed to bring focus to the happy couple, and everyone's going to be staring at those Jedi robes, and no one's going to look at the bride.
Yeah, who cares what the bride's wearing? They got Jedis over there and stormtroopers.
Yeah, those stormtroopers are clanking around on the dance floor. Why would I look at the couple eating cake?
You're the asshole. A wedding should represent both of you, not just you. A wedding should be about celebrating your love, not celebrating your love for Star Wars. Have a Star Wars themed birthday party or bachelor party instead.
Yeah, OP could absolutely have a whole bachelor party about Star Wars, and he can invite a bunch of stormtroopers. Where is OP going to get stormtroopers? Is that something you can rent?
I don't know, like they have party princesses that you can rent for like little kids' birthday parties, right?
Yeah.
I mean, not rent, hire. Do they have stormtroopers?
Maybe they do. I don't know.
You're the asshole, OP. If you want an over-the-top Star Wars party, then plan one and throw one. Then you can invite people who actually want to be part of it because they love it like you do. Don't use your wedding as an opportunity to make your wild party fantasies come true. Can y'all maybe just get a Death Star wedding cake? Honestly, the shape and it standing alone would be much more of a conversation piece without detracting from your wife and the point of the celebration.
Yeah, I don't know if I would go full wedding cake being Star Wars, but I think OP will be amazed how many little details he gets to make Star Wars if he stops trying to, like, do the big stunts that take over the whole event. Like, he can absolutely wear Millennium Falcon cufflinks. He can absolutely get a lightsaber tie pin. I don't think the bride is going to argue about those points. I think the bride would be thrilled to have a bunch of Jar Jar Binks lollipops in the little gift bags you give to all of the guests when they leave.
Ew, no. I don't want to put that in my mouth.
Do you know which ones I'm talking about?
Oh, yes.
The ones where the lollipop is his tongue.
Yes, I forgot about those. Oh, I blocked that from my memory. But yes, I saw those on the internet. They were horrifying.
But I could absolutely see little Star Wars things, you know, going in the gift bag, going to your groomsmen as their gifts. It's just, you know, little accents.
You're the asshole, OP. Theme weddings are stupid. They don't need a theme. It's a wedding. Your fiancé being a girly girl is not the same as making a pop culture part of your identity. If you want to incorporate something small and subtle into your wedding that references your love of Star Wars, that's cool. But theming the wedding around it is gross and tacky. Yeah, he's like, she's a girly girl and has been planning her wedding her whole life. I think I should have a Star Wars themed wedding.
Yeah, she's a girly girl and he's a nerdy nerd. Like, what do you mean you want a Star Wars wedding?
I feel like those are two very different things, having like a upscale classy wedding and a Star Wars themed wedding. Like, you cannot compare those as being comparable and we should both get what we want.
They really aren't, and it sounds like maybe OP does just need the groom's cake. That is a Death Star. Like that person said, don't make it the main wedding cake because I feel like your bride does not want pictures of cutting into a Death Star. Make it the groom's cake. You can cut it with a lightsaber.
But Reddit is pretty firm on this one. He's definitely the asshole, and a themed wedding is not the way to go this time.
Yeah, it's kind of like when Anakin and Padme got married. They just chose to elope. They didn't do any crazy themes because they're not into the same things. He's into, you know, betraying the Order of the Jedi, and she's into politics. They didn't make a big deal out of what their interests are. It was all about them.
You're starting to make me regret choosing this theme. I'm just going to go to the next story. Am I the asshole for not letting my 8-year-old nephew play with my $825 lightsaber?
God damn. Why is your lightsaber worth over $800? Does it actually work?
About a week ago, my sister and her 8-year-old son came over for lunch. I have a very good relationship with her and my nephew, so they come over here quite often. Lately, he's been getting into Star Wars, which I think is great because I'm a huge Star Wars fan. Throughout the past few weeks, I've made sure to keep him interested and usually have a Star Wars-themed gift for him when they come over. For this particular visit, I had bought him a Star Wars Lego set. Not a particularly big one, but nonetheless, with Lego's prices, it was still $50. Anyway, my sister and I are talking at the table while he's building the Lego set in the living room. He runs back to the table, incredibly excited and barely speaking coherently. By the time we stand up from the table, he's already ran to the bedroom. I usually keep the door closed, but I guess I forgot. When we get there, he's jumping up and down and pointing at my lightsaber that's hanging on the wall. Naturally, he then proceeds to ask, "Can I see it?" Even I play with it sometimes, so I can see how an 8-year-old couldn't resist. I tell him no and then go to steer him out of my bedroom when my sister asks, "Why can't he play with it?" I try to explain to her that it's very expensive, at which point she asks how much. When I reluctantly tell her that it cost me $825, she looks appalled, but still insists that he would be careful and wouldn't break it.
Oh, no. I'm sorry. I feel like once you tell me that something costs $800, I retract my question about whether or not an 8-year-old can play with it.
At this point, she's rather upset, and we get in an argument because I don't want to share my toys. They both left shortly after that. We're not really fighting anymore, but she's still very much annoyed and thinks that I'm wrong for not letting her son play with my lightsaber, regardless of how much it costs. Am I the asshole?
I'm sorry, is OP not going to give us an explanation as to why the hell his lightsaber costs that much money? Is it made of rubies?
Well, he does then add a link to the lightsaber where you can buy it. He says this is the lightsaber in question. It has gone down in price. It's only $600 now.
So it's just like a really nice recreation of Darth Vader's lightsaber?
Looks like, yeah, it's just super high quality.
I mean, I guess I'm not going to judge OP on spending, $800 on something that he really likes. I've definitely spent a bunch of money on dumb things that I really like.
You looking around for an example?
Not in this room. I was, but I'm not going to find one in this room. This is the room for all the dumb things Kristie really likes.
Most of which I get at garage sales or as gifts.
So yeah, I don't think you're the asshole, OP. That's awfully expensive. Only thing you could have done better was maybe try to steer the conversation into a way of like, let's go play with your new toy. Like, distract the kid instead of just saying no and not trying to provide a second option. But that's more of a strategy than it is a condemnation.
See, I think at 8 years old, it's old enough to be like, this is very, very expensive, so I'm not going to let you touch it. But let me take it down and show it to you.
That's also an option. You're right. Because I feel like an 8-year-old should be able to control themselves and not try to snatch it out of your hand or anything.
And I do feel like, it's probably high up on the wall. The kid just wants to look at it. He said, "Can I see that?" I feel like just taking it down and showing it to him and like being like, "Look, this is how it lights up. You press this button, it does this." And, that might just placate the kid enough. I feel like with our nieces and nephews, there's some stuff where I was like, "Oh, this is too fragile for you to touch." But like, I still wanted to show it to them because it's cool.
Yeah, that's a good point. I can absolutely see bringing it down and, showing it to your nephew because you do share this interest. And it's really fun that you get to share an interest with your nephew.
But I think absolutely not the asshole for being like, you cannot play with it.
Yeah, right.
This is not a playing with toy. This is a display toy.
And at 8, they should be able to understand that some things are not for playing, some things are just for display. I'm sure mom and dad have a couple things in the house that are for display only. It is a little strange that your sister tried to overrule you and put you in a weird spot in front of the kid.
Top comment, NTA, your sister didn't have the right to force you to let your nephew play with it. Some things are off limits, and mostly, kids are pretty good at understanding and appreciating that. So she should have backed you on it. Hopefully she realizes and apologizes. Also, wicked cool lightsaber.
Yeah, and to be fair, OP did say that they're not like still fighting about it or anything. So maybe sister did realize in hindsight, oh, wait, I should have backed the other adult because it's not like this was something we should have been fighting over.
Someone else says, tell her, Okay, I'll let him play with it. If he breaks it, you'll repay me the $825. Deal? NTA.
Wasn't there a point in the 6th movie where the Ewoks got their hands on Luke's lightsaber and they're all like, hey, don't play with that, Ewoks. You're just children in a costume and that is a lightsaber and you're going to put your eye out.
Oh, see, I thought this was more like when they told little kid Anakin, you're too young to be a pod racer. And he's like, no, I can do it. And like, you don't know. You should let your nephew play with your lightsaber. He might be a prodigy with it.
What is prodigy in this case? Is he going to do just some sick lightsaber tricks, or is prodigy just the ability to hold an $800 item without breaking it?
I don't know, both.
I suppose so. A prodigy should be able to do some sick tricks without breaking it. I actually don't remember. Did the Ewoks ever have Luke's lightsaber at some point?
I think they did.
They captured him.
Yeah.
I'm rusty on that movie, apparently.
NTA, kids are walking accidents. It's yours and you have every right to deny them. She needs to explain to her kid that some things aren't toys.
Yeah, you know what it's like? It's like when Anakin allowed Jar Jar to try to help him do maintenance on the pod racer. And Jar Jar dropped a wrench inside the engine and then stuck his head inside of that electrical beam. Some people just aren't mature enough yet to do things. I'm kind of proud of that one. Everyone is going to hate this episode because I won't stop talking about Star Wars comparisons, aren't they?
It's going to resonate with a small percentage of our watchers, and the rest of them are going to be like, what is he talking about?
Yeah, like 5% of our audience is going to love this.
But anyways, Reddit says not the asshole. You don't have to let kids play with your expensive things. Not everything's a toy.
And I gotta agree with that. Yeah, not everything's a toy. Maybe you could have just brought it down and shown it to him, though.
All right, that's our last story for this episode of Josh and Kristie Stealing the Internet.
Thanks for watching. Hit that subscribe button and may the 4th be with you. Pew, pew, pew. Pew, pew.